Welcome to the Rider's Edge podcast, a platform to share conversations about the health and wellness of horse and rider. I'm your host, Farley Schweigert. Hey y'all, welcome to day number 867 of the quarantine in 2020. How are y'all doing? Let's have a conversation today about assessment and reassessment. So we're in the middle of trying to flatten the curve of quarantine, social distancing. We talked last week about perspective. And this week, I want to talk about reassessing. And this will kind of bleed over to last week. It's kind of a joint conversation. But reassessing where you're at and where you're going and how you're going to get there. We're in the part of that quarantine right now that, and I did a Facebook post about this other day, that it's a lot like starting a cult. You can't see the improvement every day. You can't feel the improvement every day, but you have to keep showing up consistently with the same consistent cues to lay down the foundation to get the result that you want. And that's where we're at in the quarantine as well. And it's not the fun part. It's not the sexy part, but it is one of the most important parts, because the conversation is going to continue here for a while, and then it's going to shift into reintegration or whatever new term we get for the next phase. So let's talk about reassessment of yourself and your horses and your situation and where you're going to go next. Because if you are home and your routine has changed, for a lot of people, they have more opportunity now to be riding, be roping the dummy, be working on different things, to be working out. I saw a meme on Facebook the other day that said something to the effect of having more time, turns out, was not the reason why I wasn't cleaning my house, or something like that. And house cleaning and working out can go in the same boat sometimes, right? So, but it's all kind of reassessing, what your goals are and where you are and how you can get there. So, are you working out? Are you changing up a routine? And we've talked a lot of times on this podcast about working out, and that's a monstrous word, right? For me, working out right now looks at core and shoulder work, to work on getting back into the rope pen in my campaign for In the Arena 365, hashtag In the Arena 365. If you hear some heavy breathing on this podcast, it's because Allie the cow dog is helping me record today. So she is always a big help in everything she does. Everything. So are you working out or doing specific things to work on part of your riding that needs help? For me, I have a bad habit of leaning forward. Very bad habit, and it's ingrained from some different reasons that, while it's much better than it used to be, it's reared its ugly head this week with riding my colts. It also rears its ugly head in the rope pen every single time we're there, because that changes the mechanics of your swing, right? If you are bent over at the waist, you are not getting your tip where it needs to be to rope a target. So it's working on specific things that work on my core and keeping my shoulder healthy, And the third thing for me right now is, and it kind of goes back to the core, but working on specific muscles in my back to activate them so that my hip doesn't hurt. And when I stay consistent with that, I have less pain and things are operating at a higher level, things like that. So let's talk about reassessing where you are with your horse. Are you, because we're not competing right now, so for a lot of horses, a lot of high level horses, this is great because this is rest time, right? As we talked with the creator of flare strips the other day, Jim, and Hannah of flare equine nasal strips. We talked about bleeders and rest and recovery and things like that. So for a lot of top horses, whether we're talking about barrel horses, race horses, rope horses, what have you, are able to have some rest and recovery, whether it's a lung issue or an orthopedic issue that is plaguing them. Allie is super interested in the podcast today. She is just up and at 'em. She's had a little hard time adjusting to the quarantine because it has interrupted her 23 hours of napping, or 22 because she does have to feed twice a day, so she only gets 22 hours of napping. So it's been a hard adjustment for Allie Dog. So are your horses recovering? And if they are recovering, where is that balance that you're getting in keeping them in shape and getting them ready to compete when the world does open back up? For some, it may look like some cross training, some working on a different event. It could be as simple as taking a barrel horse and teaching them how to do the poles, or throwing a bunch of logs out in the arena and doing kind of a trail obstacle course kind of thing, or even just working through some different cone exercises or something to break up the monotony of maybe what the normal routine is. And it may be taking a rope horse and teaching them something new, like the pole pattern or even the barrel pattern. I know that that can be sacrilegious in some circles, right? A rope horse go into the barrel pin. I've done it before. It's okay. I took my dad's good head horse 7, and at age 21 taught him to run barrels, and ran barrels on him for 4 years after that. And then his retirement tour, he went back to the rope pen as a breakaway horse, and then we retired him. So it can be done. It's okay. But where is your reassessment at for those two sectors of your riding and your performance? For you physically, and for your horse physically, mentally, health-wise. And another thing, while we have some time on our hands, let's reassess our own health. So we've talked about what we need to do to be in shape, or maybe change some things around. I kind of let you in on my story of where I'm at. But let's talk about your health, as this has really rocked our world in all sectors of our lives, right? And I think 3 sectors that are going to be changed forever are healthcare, education, and agriculture is going to have some changes in it too. And I'm hoping some positive ones, some better PR, some better relationships, and we'll get some of these other things straightened out. But let's take the health side of you and what you have going on, because it's always needed to be this way, and it never fully has. You've got to take responsibility, and I'm going to talk globally. Horse people, ag people are tough and resilient and are a special breed of population. And I think it's what makes these conversations work very well. But we have to make sure we are taking responsibility for our health. And you already are if you're hanging out here at Writer's Edge listening to these conversations. Health and wellness is important to you. Knowledge is important to you. And learning those different things so that you are better at making choices for you and your horse. But let's dig in a little bit deeper. Like we talked about earlier on the analogy of starting a cult, and being in day 867 of quarantine, that it's the little things that make up the solid foundation, right? It is really kind of getting in a space where you can work on the stewardship of your health, becoming a good steward of your health. And what does that look like? For you, it may look like making small changes to your diet, a little less sugar. And just like we've talked about working out before, and we've talked about nutrition on here before, it's not making great massive changes at once. It's consistently showing up for those small changes. If you're working with a horse and working on getting them to stop on their rear end, you give them those same cues consistently. You hold consistent pressure with your hands, so that they know where that stopping point is. You do the same thing with your hips every time. And maybe you give the same verbal cues if you're really working on a cue with them. But you do these small steps every time. It's the same way with your health. As we're learning more about COVID-19 and different things that affect it, different comorbidities tend to have other tend to make it more complicated than other things. And we've even looked into different blood types and this and that. And, if we're trying to get all the information we can for this virus, it just dawned on me that we need, as healthcare providers, do a better job at educating on a level about health and not talking above people or at people, but talking with people. So that looks like, going through different things of truly what is your activity level? What is your nutrition? Are you measuring to a degree, any degree, because we know we can't change things that we don't measure, your sugar intake or your total intake, or is it a pop thing? Is it an alcohol thing or a tobacco thing? Looking at these different things that add up over time. We've talked before about how within movement patterns, if we don't correct them, that can lead to chronic joint pain that continues to compound over time until one day you suddenly wake up with that issue. What was coming on all along, and we just didn't address it along the way. So it's working on that, especially if you, no matter what your age is, but particularly if you are in your 20s, 30s, 40s, even 50s, working through some things that can be more beneficial for you later, because working through your stress now will decrease the amount of inflammatory processes that are happening in your body, which will help improve your joint health, but it will also help improve your circulatory system so that maybe we're not having a heart disease issue later on. and just on and on and on. And knowing what causes these things and how, and doing an ostrich not doing an ostrich thing where we're putting our head in the sand, and that won't happen to me. Or if I'm real good at, I'm preaching to the choir here, let me tell you, because I'm very good at being an ostrich on things that make me feel uncomfortable. Super good at it. Could probably write the book about being an ostrich. That's how good I am at it sometimes. So, working through those responses of, you know, I know that this is an issue for me because it's in my family history. So I need to learn about it. I need to learn how to decrease the inflammatory process so that I have better joint health. Or I need to really manage the stress, because we know stress is you can just list stress on anything and everything. And I'm not even talking about things directly related to COVID-19 at all. I'm talking about just any kind of chronic condition. Stress going to go there on the list of contributing factors. And so, you know, how within this conversation, how can I help you learn better so that you do know what's going on at a level, because we only get one trip around the sun. We have to become better stewards of our body, and so that we can accomplish our goals, or at least attack them, and accomplish our goals and move through the stages of stewardship so that we can kind of get where we're going with different things. And for me, it really, I'm taking a course this week in finances, and they talked a lot about stewardship. And that word, and really, I mean, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm not being a good steward. I could be a better steward of what I have, so that is that those systems become better and I do better. I can become a better steward of the next set of systems or tasks that are coming at me. And so and it's the same thing with our health. If you become a better steward of this, then you know where you need to go next. That's kind of rocked us to our core, as we've seen healthcare workers have to do without PPE, or have makeshift PPE. Well, we have been very blessed in this country that we have kind of fallen into a lull in our healthcare system, that we have all the answers and we can work everything out. And we don't have all the answers in healthcare. We live in the greatest time ever for innovation and advancements in healthcare, but it's still a science and an art. And so if we're having to create on the fly personal protective gear, where we have been taught for years that there were certain rules about it, you could only use it here, and you could only use it like this, and da 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 da, and now we're living in the wild, wild west again. We're living in the wild, wild west of how we do things, but still having to be innovative in that so that we can protect our healthcare providers, and we can protect our families and our loved ones and ourselves. So let's work on reassessing where we are being, how our stewardship is of our health. And while we're reassessing that, let's reassess our stewardship of how we're taking care of our horses. Could we be doing better at keeping their stalls so that, as we've talked on a previous podcast about bedding choices and how better stalls will encourage our horses to lay down more and lay down longer. And if they're getting more rest, they are recovering more. They are becoming healthier and continuing to keep up with the demands that we place on them. So, how are we being a good steward of our horses as well? Because they give us everything we ask for and more often. And so, how can we help them more? And all of these small little steps continue to build on each other in a fashion that we have a stronger foundation that's built on rock and not on shifting sand. And it's always going to change. Like, we have to build this foundation of stewardship on rock, because if we are solidly grounded, we're going to be able to shift and adjust to what's coming at us next, because it's always going to be changing and shifting and adjusting. So, are you reassessing yet? Are you sitting here in this conversation today in your mind going, I could switch my schedule around to where I get my stalls done every morning before I go to work. Or, if I talk to my husband and plan this a little bit better, then maybe he can do supper on these nights so that I could spend a little bit more time at the barn. And in exchange for that, I'll, get this other set of stalls done besides my horse. I don't know, just little things. Again, reassessment is hard because it's scary and icky and gross. It can bring up feelings of defeat and feelings of I can't find the word right now, but where you beat yourself up and self-punish yourself, or I should be better, I need to do that better, I I can't I didn't get this done perfectly today, so I obviously am bad at this, or whatever. You know what your voices say in your head. I know you know what your voices say because you deal with them every day. So, after last week talking about perspective and looking at where that is this week, I think it's time for some reassessment. And once you find those little things, making an action plan. For me this week, I'm continuing to work on my core, and that's going to help continue to address this leaning forward. And I've also got to do better with my feet and how I am communicating through my feet with my horses. Particularly, I'm riding two young horses right now, so that I am consistent in my cues and they're not confused by what I'm asking, so then I don't get frustrated, and that snowball that'll happen. So, what are you? Where are your reassessments? Where are your reassessments with your physical health for riding? Where are your reassessments for your health in general? Whether we're talking about risk factors for environmental risk factors for what's going on in the world, or risk factors for chronic disease, whether that be orthopedic, cardiovascular, any number of things, and becoming more knowledgeable so that you can better take care of yourself, for yourself and your dreams, and for the people around you. And reassessing how your program's going with your horse. Does this downtime look like we need to do some cross training? Is it resting? Is it riding in the pasture every day, up the hill, down the hill? That is your normal workout spot. There's no right answer. But the best answer for you is identifying and then taking action in small steps to get forward motion. I wish you all well. I wish you all health and safety. Reach out to me on my Writer's Edge Facebook page or Instagram if I can help you with any of these things for your health and well-being and your horses. I would be more than happy to sit down and have a conversation with you. And as always, I will see you down the road. Thank you for listening to Writer's Edge Podcast. For show notes and other thoughts, head over to writersedgetherapy.com. If you would like to stay connected and continue the conversation, head over to my free Facebook group, Writer's Edge Health and Wellness for Horse and Rider. Thanks for continuing the conversation, and as always, I will see you down the road.